Welcome to the Imperfectly Empowered podcast with leading DIY lifestyle blogger Anna Fulmer, where women are inspired with authentic stories and practical strategies to reclaim their hearts and homes by empowering transformation, one imperfect day at a time.
Hi, and welcome back to another episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. I am your host, Anna Fulmer. Today is my honor to have Jason Frazell on the show. Jason is an internationally renowned leadership coach and personal branding expert for CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, and side hustlers alike. Featured in the New York Times and host of the leading podcast, Talking to Cool People. Welcome leadership coach and all around cool dude, Jason Frazell. Jason, welcome to the podcast.
So good to be here.
Oh my word. I think this has been hands down the most challenging interview I have yet. I think I've canceled, or I should say rescheduled several times due to unforeseen circumstances. I think you had to reschedule once. And then finally we got the interview started and I realized 30 minutes into it, what was this, a month ago now? I never pressed record. I've never done it before or since. So you guys, this is going to be the best interview you've ever heard.
Gotta tell you, I'm so thrilled to have this place on your wall of guests. Is the most drama. That's what I'm going for everywhere. Is the most drama as a guest.
Oh my word. Seriously, this has been the most challenging. I don't know what my deal has been here. Anyway, and you're still making it happen. You're in Denver, Colorado, in a hotel room.
Denver for a conference. In a hotel rorom. That's how we do it.
Well, we are making it happen. Anyway.
Yes.
So we got started last time and I can't remember what all we were talking about. We got onto sales and the many, many different things that you have done in your career.
Yes.
You've been featured in New York Times. You have helped many people build their careers. Tell me a little bit about your earlier years, how you got to where you are today. You're also a podcast host. You got a lot behind your name. So tell me a little bit about where you initially started.
Yeah. So I was born in Melbourne, Arkansas. No, I'm not going to bore anybody with that. No, I was. That's true.
At 2:00 in the morning. My social security number is.
Exactly. It was 11. But the funny thing, just to start with that, is we go through each year of my life from 0 to 44, which is my age now. I was born in Arkansas and we left it for 6 months and I've never been back. So I don't really consider myself in Arkansas.
It's Arkansas. Yeah, exactly. I mean.
Exactly.
No judgment.
Exactly. No judgment. Yeah. So I started my sales career actually in college. So my first official sales job was selling advertising for the University of Minnesota school newspaper, which is a big school newspaper. Still is it's called the Minnesota Daily. And that's where I got my start selling to businesses. And I never looked back. So here we are today, although I don't specifically sell to businesses anymore, but that's where I got my first official start. In high school, I was always outgoing, extroverted, but didn't do any actual official sales roles until that, where I'm like, oh wait, when I sell something to somebody, I get a small, very, very, very small portion of that as a paycheck back to me. My first commission check, I was like, whoa, this is pretty cool. That if I do work, I actually get paid for it, as opposed to salary. So that's where I got my start in college. And then out of college, I went right into tech sales. I worked at a company called Nextel, which became Sprint, which is now T-Mobile, which is really ironic because my second sales job was at the Mall of America in Minnesota, where I'm actually from. So at the T-Mobile store. So it all came full circle. So it's interesting. So I worked in telecom. It all came full circle. I went through the telecom and then I decided I didn't like big companies anymore. And I worked at a variety of startups. And that was my sales career. And that was almost 20 years. So I actually spent quite a bit of time in each of my companies, which I know can be rare in this day and age. But I spent 8 years in my first job, 3 in my second, 5 in the second after that. So I didn't jump around. And then I jumped around a little bit at the end of my career because I got bored and realized this is not really what I want to do.
Yeah. Well, sales for 20 years sounds, I think I'd rather go to the dentist. We've talked about this. I'm not, sales are not my forte. I'm not a saleswoman. I'm like, you don't want it? Okay. Like, I'm not going to stand here forever and talk you into it. Like,
yeah, it's so funny you say that about sales, that the idea is that your job is to talk people into something.
I know. It's not. You're offering a service that can change their life. People, I'm offering you a service that can change your life. Buy it.
Exactly. Well, the funny thing is you actually are a salesperson. But people can do business with you. You're like, I
Yeah.
know, darn it.
I know. Dang it. Yeah. Well, as long as I'm not the saleswoman that people walk away like cringing from, there's, like you said, there is a way to do sales. There's a way to not do sales. But yeah, it's never been my forte. What was your least favorite sales experience and what was your most favorite sales experience?
Yeah. Ooh, blast from the past. My least favorite sales experience was, I won't name the company. And it wasn't really about the company, it was about the manager I had.
Yeah.
So anybody who's
Tale
worked,
as old as time.
tale as old as time. There's nothing new here. Everybody knows that, and I say this to my clients all the time, a bad boss and a great job makes for a bad job. And a great boss at a bad job makes for, it could be a decent job. So I had,
So true.
and I was fortunate. I only had one boss in my career that I just look back, I'm like, no, it's not, was obviously didn't have my interest at heart. And so working for that person, what made that so miserable was we would do our weekly one-on-one, which is something you generally do in sales, talk about your pipeline. And I remember distinctly that after those meetings, and mine were on Monday mornings, I would take the rest of the day off. So I'm like, it was kind of like a bad relationship where like, it doesn't matter what I do or what information I give this person, they're just gonna like be negative.
Yeah.
So that was definitely the hardest part of my career. It only lasted about a year, and I was pretty resourceful. I made it work anyway. I still sold a bunch of stuff. I just didn't feel supported. The best job I ever had was probably the job after that, actually, where I went into my first startup and I got to work on a book of business with a couple of other people, and we killed it the first year. We just happened to be in a spot where we hit the market. I was selling cybersecurity software for mobility, so specifically for iPhone and Android. And it was 2011, so we like hit the sweet spot in the market, which is in sales. A lot of it's just about timing, and we just crushed it. We had a great year, made a bunch of money, had a bunch of happy customers, and that was just. I woke up every Monday like, I can't believe I get to do this, and I never felt that way again until I started working for myself. So I had it once in my corporate career, and then got it again, and now I have it. I have it almost every day, not every single day, but almost every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you noted that what the word that I heard you say with the bad leadership experience was negativity. And it's interesting how I think there's a fine line between, obviously there can be a false positive, this sense that, you don't want to falsely convey positivity to somebody when there really is something they need to work on. There can be constructive criticism presented in a positive way, but it's interesting that negativity is what you associated with that bad experience. And with that in mind, and as a leadership coach, what would you say in your experience and in your observation are, give me like 2 words. I gave one already, negativity, for a bad leadership experience. And then give me 2 words that you think exceptionally portray a positive. So you can't use positive, a positive leader. Dang it. I should say you can't even use negative. You can't use negative. So 2 words for a bad leader and 2 words for a good leader. And again, I always point this out on my podcast because a lot of people hear the idea of leadership coach and they think you have to be in a professional role of some capacity. I have said this a million times. I'll say it again. If you have anybody in your life who looks up to you, you are a leader. So you could be a stay-at-home mom and you need leadership coaching. You are just as valuable, if not the most valuable leader that your children will ever see. So leadership coaching is for every single person on the planet, I would argue. So what is a good leader and a bad leader?
So let me give you the 2 negative words that came up. And I like this because I'm working on my brevity. So this is perfect. You're making me work on it. Number 1, selfish. Number 2, disconnected. I think those go hand in hand.
Okay, so selfish, I think is pretty self-explanatory. Elaborate a little bit on disconnected.
Leaders that don't know what's actually going on with their people.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a frontline manager or somebody who has direct reports that need things from you and you're just not connected to what they're up to, or even worse, what they're motivated by. So like one of the big gaps I see in corporate leadership overall is and I'm guilty of this too, is I think I'll speak for myself. I assume that what motivates me is what motivates others. And that's not
Yeah,
always the case.
that's an excellent point. Mm-hmm.
And so you see this especially in sales. Because sales, by definition, is where you go to make money and you have commission. And the assumption is that you like to make money. I think everybody likes to make money. But I know salespeople that that's not actually their number one priority when there's like why they do sales. Like they either have a lot of money or they're comfortable with what they make, even if they don't make a ton of money. And they're actually motivated by like winning or learning new technologies and things like that. So as a leader, finding out, and it's pretty easy to find out, you just ask people, which also doesn't happen. Hey, what's the thing that motivates you? And then staying connected to that and using that as a way to have people excited about what they're doing. So those are the two words that came up for that. I'm going to not use connected because that would be too easy.
Yeah.
I'm going to make it harder on myself. I'm going to do some real improv here. Two signs of a great leader is I'm going to cheat and not use two words for this one, but from the front. So leading from the front, do as I like, let me demonstrate for you or show you that I'm willing to do the work too. Not to say that managers should be doing the day-to-day, but they should be willing to demonstrate it and model it as opposed to, hey, you're going to do this. So that's number one. Number two is, this goes along the line of connected, is empathetic. I think this is actually something that has really grown in the last 2 years with everybody at home and remote work and everything, is being more empathetic, and that it's actually okay if it isn't a perfectly pretty bow around the job day in and day out, and that people have a lot of lives. So that's the other thing. And I coach a lot of younger, like 30 and under. That's a requirement. The style of empathetic, like understanding your employee. What are they up to? What are they motivated by? What might be going on around them that's outside of their job that might get in the way? That's something that is a requirement now. And at the end of the day, it's the need to be seen and to be heard, like the basic human need. That wasn't a thing, even for me 20 years ago when I started my career. It wasn't really a thing. It's like, hey, here's your job. Here's what you're going to do. And you go out and do it.
Yeah, it's funny as you're talking, obviously from a professional standpoint, so much of what you're saying is very relatable, but I'm also thinking as a parent, truly the things that you're saying, even for a poor leadership example, are so true as a parent. And I think what motivates you, are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Oh, I'm very familiar.
He is people are either like, oh yes, absolutely, or they are, no, what are you talking about? And I don't care.
You mean a 7-6 wing, just for by example?
Well, what's fascinating about, I was just having this conversation with some girlfriends not that long ago, is exactly what you're saying. This concept of what motivates you is something that the Enneagram really helped me less to understand myself, but more to help relate to my children. And again, let me point this out. We never want to reduce somebody to a number, especially our very young children who still have to grow and mature. And we want them to have the freedom to grow into whoever God has made them to be. However, my girls, it was really helpful because I am an 8 at my core, but I'm also a very, very, is that what you are?
I'm a 7 with a wing 6, but I'm a close 8 my number 3.
Okay. So a 3 is one of my other very, very high numbers. So I always joke that I'm an overachieving Karen because I'm a high 8 and a super high 3, but I'm an overachieving Karen who's been, graciously transformed by Jesus. So I'd like to think I'm a little nicer than what I otherwise
Except but not a salesperson.
But not a salesperson.
Does not like sales.
I'm full of dichotomies. But what's interesting is my girls are very much a distinct part of me. So my oldest is like textbook 3. My youngest, who's only 4, and granted, she's got many years to go, but she is like textbook 8 right now. And it helped me because there were certain elements of both girls. They're so much like me, but they're two very distinct parts of me. And so I parent them differently. Like Gracie's very concerned about how people perceive her, has, some more like inherent insecurities that come along with being a 3 that I realized, okay, I have to parent her differently. When she is feeling insecure, I cannot just be like, suck it up. That's the 8 part of me that wants to be like, who cares what they think? Like, I can't do that with her because she does care, and that's okay. That's part of her response. My youngest, on the other hand, she is like, the harder you push her, she will push back just for the sake of pushing back. She could not care less what people think of her. And in fact, if you don't like what she's doing, she is going to do it all the more. And so it really helped me recognize the 2 very distinct ways. My son, on the other hand, God only knows. We don't even know. There is no Enneagram number for this child yet. Like, we just don't know with him. I literally looked up the other day because I was like, God, I don't know what to do with this boy. Like, I don't know how to parent this child. So anyways, lots of grace needed for him. But my point is this: what you said is so applicable that I humbly have had to recognize that it is important for me to recognize that what motivates my children, especially my girls, even though they are so similar to me, is still potentially very different than myself. So I think it's an important side note that as a parent, everything that you're saying is so applicable. Find out what motivates your kids. The Enneagram helped me. I realize there's many different ways of going about that. They might not be able to verbalize what motivates them at this point. But anyway, I love what you said, because I'm just sitting here thinking I've had to do that self-reflection as a parent leading my children. And I don't know in your experience how you have, what you would say to that, but.
Yeah, we have a 6-year-old and a 1.5-year-old. So the 1.5-year-old's like pretty much motivated by breaking himself or breaking other things. Yeah,
motivated by
food and the dog and hitting the dog. The 6-year-old definitely. Yeah, thinking about that, I think I know what motivates her, but I think she might be a little young to worry about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like she's motivated by the stuff that most 6-year-olds are motivated by, but as they get older, for sure, as their personality grows. Interesting. Yeah. Leadership coaching for parents. That's an interesting.
Honestly, though, the more that I have people on here who are leadership coaches, I think there are so many parenting takeaways, because we don't think of parenting enough like leadership, but there is no greater leadership position. I think we too often think of a leader as somebody who is simply in the limelight. They're in front. They have this like professional role.
Yeah.
But there is no greater leadership role than that of a parent. You have been all over the map in terms of your career. You have so many experiences under your belt. One of the things, whether we're talking parenting or professional leadership in general, or even just building a business as you help people do now, what is one of the greatest challenges that you have faced personally? And tell me a little bit about how you overcame that, whether it was a mistake made and a lesson learned, or just a challenge that you had to conquer. Can you think of a point in your career that especially stands out?
I can think of about 20. I'll give you one. Yeah, this is working for myself. And this is something that I've come to realize. And I believe that most entrepreneurs, business owners, people that work for themselves and need to generate their income, find out the hard way is that skill is not enough. Just being good at what you do when you're by yourself is not enough. You have to have some marketing. You have to have some branding. And it doesn't have to be fancy, but you have to have a presence out there. And this is especially true for me, is I have a lot of training hours as a coach. Nobody hires me because I have a lot of training hours for a coach. Give you another example, fitness. Yeah. How many people do you know that hire a personal trainer? And I have a trainer. When I met him, I didn't hire him. I didn't ask him how many hours he had, or could you show me the exact form on how to do this thing because you've done it. I hired him because I thought that he was the person that could help me.
Yeah.
And because I met him through networking. And so that's a form of marketing and sales. So the number one thing I've learned the hard way and how I got through it was just being good at something isn't enough. People have to know about it.
Yeah.
And arguably being good at it is not the most important thing, because you might be the perfect person for somebody and the worst person for somebody else, regardless of your skill level.
Right.
And so for me, this is a very typical entrepreneurial journey is the minds, the thing that's a hard thing to stomach sometimes when you spend a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of energy
Yeah.
on yourself. If you're in, like, if you're, doing like work on your body, you're doing mindset work, and you're doing all these things and you're spending all this time, money, energy, and it's hard work. And then you're not getting the results you want, which, by the way, I never get the results I want because I'm really impatient. So that's the other thing that I
Yeah.
have this dichotomy of,
Yeah.
great, so this should have happened yesterday. So I had
Right.
this confluence of a lot of money, time, energy, training, good at what I do, coupled with it's never fast enough, which came to the middle, which had me be like, what the heck is going on? This sucks.
Yeah.
And just having, and through coaching, through therapy, through having a great partner, through a great support system, just working through that, like, hey, this is actually normal. I think there's a lot of power in
Right.
normalization. And this is what I coach people on now. Like, I coach a lot of founders of startups, and this is very normal. They have
Yeah.
amazing products that can change the world and nobody knows about them. And it's hard because it's really hard to get that first deal or that second deal or make that big hire. And
Yeah.
that the lesson in all this is, to me, is consistency and time and market. If you can do those two things, be consistent, three things actually. Consistency, keep showing up, meaning you don't disappear for a month, 2 months. If you're a podcaster, you don't stop podcasting for 3 months because you don't have the numbers you want. A lot of podcasters do that. Keep showing up, keep doing what you're doing if you know you're doing it well. And then the third thing is just keep putting out a good product. So if you're a coach, do good work with your clients. If you're whatever it is you're doing, just keep showing up. And over time, I do believe that it works out. And you have to invest in yourself. It's really hard to do this all by yourself, whether that be marketing, sales, coaching, whatever it is. It's really hard to sit by yourself and try to generate a business.
Yeah.
And I don't think most people tell you that when you go in and work for yourself. Nobody told me that. I don't know if anybody told you that, but
Yeah. No, but I mean, nobody had to tell me that because I very quickly was like, what? I have no idea what I'm doing.
exactly.
Where are my people? Bring me some people. Networking.
Like, I'm
is
so
key.
good at what I do. Look at all these things. And people are like, what? Yeah.
No. Oh my word. Yeah. No, it did not take me long at all to realize, God, I'm not gonna be able to do this on my own. That's for sure. I don't even know what I'm doing. I think you may have already said the word, but if you could sum up the secret to success in one word or phrase, what would it be?
Oh, it's such a loaded question.
Loaded. Yep.
For success for me, or success for
Maybe
people?
just in general, between the clients that you've seen succeed, your own personal experience, is there sort of a universal, in your mind, a universal truth that is consistently seeing success in people's lives?
Yeah. Joy.
Okay, I was not expecting that one. I think you're the first one to have
Yeah.
said that.
Yeah. Well, I do want to caveat. I don't believe that success is universal. And success for each of us means something different.
Yeah.
So it's hard to do that, but let me expound upon that just a little bit. People that I know that are successful generally have found a way to make money doing what they love and also have joy in their life. I know people that are very wealthy that have no joy in their life. I don't think we would think they were successful. Broken marriages, broken, child relationships,
Yep.
drug abuse. I know people that, and I think the average household income in the United States is like 66,000 or something, which, I live in the East Coast, that you live on the East Coast as well. So it doesn't get you very far. People are wildly happy making that, depending on what they're doing. So it's not, for me, when I hear success, I try to get away from the money thing because I don't know. But for me, like, people have joy in their life, and the joy might be their job, might be their home. If you can get all that working together and have a purpose, that's what I think is the thing that has people be successful. Most people I know would take less money to do something they love, as long as they can pay the bills and cover what their things are. Most people I know. And if they're motivated solely by money, they're likely going to go into a sort of profession like a finance or something, where I've yet to meet somebody who works in finance who's happy. And I'm not talking about like personal finance or financial plan. I'm talking about, I work at a big bank or investment banking.
Right.
And you go do that, but then I know that a lot of those people are just not happy. They don't have a lot of joy in their life, working their butts off, get a good paycheck, and it's not good. So joy. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I love that. And it's also conveying this idea of gratitude is really what I'm hearing. It's this concept that if you want to see success in your life, it's not necessarily a monetary outcome or even a physical or objective outcome, but this idea that maybe success is simply being very grateful and joyful in where you're at. And that may, in and of itself, yield the results that you are looking for. At least it's going to probably make it a lot more likely to happen.
Yeah. Well, let me give you an example here. You buy services for people, right? And people buy services from you.
Mm-hmm.
Are you more likely to buy services from somebody that shows up authentic and joyful and passionate about what they do?
Yeah.
But you can usually you can usually sense the difference between I'm selling you and I genuinely care.
Yeah.
The genuinely care. I know you and I come from the same community where we just have a whole group of people that do care about what they do, which is one of the things that makes it amazing. But that's contagious.
Yeah.
And there's so many people that we buy things from that it's just obvious they're just there for the paycheck. And I feel bad because I'm like, I've been there too, man, or woman, like whatever, I've been there.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's the thing is I think it's also can be really hard to find joy depending on the profession you're in, especially if you do it because you need to do it. And I'm well aware that there are many people they need to do what they need to do. Right. So it's not to say there's anything wrong with any sort of role out there, but not everybody gets to choose to do something that they think is going to joy because they just need to do what they need to do for themselves and for their family.
Yeah, that's a great point. And still trying to find the things that you can be grateful for, despite that job that you don't love, is also going to help you pull through that season. As I'm sure Jason and I can both attest to, we've both been in those seasons. Well, yes. When we come, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to play a speed round of Would You Rather, or I should say this or that with Jason. And then we are going to chat about his expert advice on how to build and monetize your brand and really how to start over, how to become an entrepreneur, maybe get out of that job that you don't love right when we come back from this break. You have tried it all. Worried you will never lose the extra weight or reclaim the energy you once enjoyed? Want to achieve fat loss without spending hours in a gym or eliminating entire food groups from your diet? Well, now you can. In the virtual Faster Way to Fat Loss with Anna, my 6-week fitness and nutrition program, you will learn how to pair effective 30-minute workouts with all-natural, evidence-based nutritional strategies to leverage what you eat and when you eat to reset your metabolism and burn fat fast, even that stubborn belly fat. I am a dual certified nurse practitioner passionate about teaching sustainable strategies to promote fat loss and prevent disease. I have cheered on thousands of clients who have done just that with the Faster Way program. In my 6-week program, the average client currently sheds 7 inches of body fat. 93% report more energy and 89% state that their mental health has improved. 100% of clients report they feel this program is sustainable. Curious to try the program but not sure if the strategies will work for you? Try the Faster Way strategies for free. Head to www.hammersandhugs.com and sign up for my free 7-day fat loss accelerator course today and start your own transformation story. All right, we're back here with Jason. He is rocking his look in his Colorado hotel here. What's the weather like where you are?
It's cold. I think it's 35 right now. Yeah, it's very cold here. And last night, I flew in last night. It was a rough landing. It was very, very windy.
Oh,
I think they're getting a cold, which is I don't know what the temperature is going to be later this week, but I believe it's opening weekend for the Rockies here. I'm staying right by the Colorado Rockies stadium, and it could be a quite cold opener.
Well, it's
but
not
I'm out of here
pleasant
Friday,
either.
so I don't even know. Yeah,
it's like I don't care. I'm in my hotel room. I'm comfortable.
It's warm in here. It's comfortable.
All right. Well, this or that. Would you rather candy or baked goods?
Candy.
What's your favorite candy?
Ooh.
Hardest question of the hour.
Yeah,
Jolly Ranchers.
I'm a much more of a hard candy. Not hard candy. I much prefer flavored candy than chocolate, which my wife is the exact opposite. But like Mike and Ike's, Nerds, Jolly Ranchers, I'm in.
Mike and Ike's. Wow.
I love Mike and Ike's.
So what's your favorite Jolly Rancher flavor? Because this is a very controversial question.
No question for me. Grape.
Grape, that's fair.
Good.
Actually, that would have
Grape is so
probably
good.
been. Yeah, I sucked on more Jolly Ranchers than I have in my entire life during my pregnancies.
Oh, you crave Jolly
Like I would
Ranchers?
never
It's
ever
amazing.
choose a Jolly Rancher, but when I was pregnant, it just helped not feel as nauseous.
Yeah.
So I instantly get like sort of negative. I think Jolly Ranchers and I'm like, oh,
You're over there, you're cringing. You're like,
my
no,
hand like
bad
goes to
answer.
my stomach. Okay, I'm not pregnant. I'm not nauseous. We're good. All right. Would you rather be a pirate or a ninja?
Ninja.
Would you rather have a personal yacht or a personal jet?
Yacht.
Yacht? Where are you taking your yacht?
Well, I take it around the world, but I think I'd probably head over to the Mediterranean,
Yeah.
Croatia,
That, yeah.
yeah,
Greece.
Greece. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I feel
yeah.
warmer already.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the yacht, I can like live on it. I don't want to live on a plane, no matter how nice
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah. That would be yeah, absolutely. That would be my answer. I've always said if I had lots and lots of funds, extra funds available, I would be so into a boat, a
Yeah,
yacht.
I will
100%.
change my first answer. If I could be a pirate but live on a yacht, I would rather be a pirate than a ninja. But if it was on an old crappy galleon, like a
Yeah.
Spanish, but then I would rather be a ninja.
I mean, ninja skills living on a yacht, probably not as helpful unless pirates
that
are
helpful.
attacking your yacht.
Yeah.
Then you could use all your
Or
ninja skills.
or you wanted to board another yacht. Being a ninja boarding another yacht would be very helpful.
Might be
Creep
helpful.
in the window.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. That's fair. Well, listen, we have everything figured out here. We've got our ninja skills on our yachts.
We're done. We're done.
We're done. We're good. Interview over. All right. Beef or chicken?
Beef.
Do you have a favorite dish? Like, do you have a favorite dish that comes to mind when you say beef?
I like a really good steak, like a medium
Yeah.
rare filet. I don't eat a ton of red meat, but I do really enjoy a good steak. Yeah.
Where
I grew up in the
is
Midwest. Yeah.
Yeah, also a controversial question. Where is the best steak that you can buy?
Like
Or the
restaurant?
best steak you've ever had? Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. Well, I live in New York City. We got a lot of good steakhouses, which is interesting as you bring this up. I don't love steakhouses. I find them to be just way over the top. I'm talking like you go and it's like a $60 piece of meat and like a $30 like side. The amount of calories you eat is insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. The best steak I've ever had is probably Strip, which is in the Village of New York City. It's amazing. I
Oh,
think
it's
it was,
called Strip.
It's called Strip. Yeah,
Okay.
it's
So
not.
the
it's
restaurant
not.
is called Strip in New York City.
Yeah, Strip.
Okay.
I think it's still there. It's in the Village. It's a great steakhouse. I just remember. I don't remember what cut I had. It was a while ago, but I remember it was really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. I'll throw mine out there for anybody who is really into steak. I also am. That would be like a surf and turf is my favorite.
Yeah, love Strip.
I'm hungry just thinking about it. Okay, my favorite for anyone interested is Stony River is the name of the restaurant, and we would go there. There's one in Towson, Maryland, so near Baltimore in Maryland. There's only a couple of these restaurants around the country. So Stony River, best steak I've ever had. One of the best restaurants, my absolute favorite. So we have
That
Strip
sounds
in New
amazing.
York City, Stony River in Towson, Maryland. There's also more Stony Rivers across the country, but anyone wants a good steak, there you go. If you get nothing else out of this interview.
Are you looking for sponsors here? Because I think this is great. You'd be like, this episode's sponsored by Stony River.
This episode is sponsored by steaks. Oh man.
By the
Yes,
beef, no, it's called the Beef Council. The US
Oh
Beef
my
Council.
word. This coming from somebody who is also like you. I don't eat a ton of red meat because we have high cholesterol. Well, I won't go into all that, but if I die of anything, it'll probably be a heart attack thanks to my genetics. So
Me too.
steak is hey, look at that.
Look at that.
Listen. Hey, you gotta go some way, shape, or form. So whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see. God knows.
Yeah.
Are you an early bird or a night owl?
That's such a good question, being that it's Denver and we're doing this at 7 a.m. I'm going to give you both and. I'm both. which is a
Okay.
challenge. So I
Fascinating.
wake up early and I don't, when I hear night owl, I think of past 10 p.m. for me is like a
Yeah.
night owl, somebody. So I don't work late. I don't like doing work late, but I don't like to just go to bed. I like to play video games or watch something on
Yeah.
TV, but I also wake up early. So I usually get up around 6. Like I'm in Denver, but I'm on East Coast time. So I was up at like 5:15, but my body, like I said, it's late for me,
Yeah.
but I have to share this with you as you asked. Our 6-year-old daughter has gotten her mom's ability to sleep in late,
Yeah.
which is not useful on a school day, as you know, as a
Precisely.
parent.
Mm-hmm.
And she also doesn't like to go to bed like me, which is a really
Yep.
terrible combination for a 6-year-old. Yeah, she doesn't like to get up and she
Actually,
doesn't like to go to bed.
yeah, I completely understand that. That's my oldest. Yeah.
Rough.
Sleep in and yeah, night owl. Both
And then we
my
pay
girls,
for it the next
actually.
morning. Every morning
Right.
we pay for it the next morning when it's time to get
Because
ready
they
for
won't
school.
get out of bed.
No.
No, I'm about to resort to like the dripping water on the face type of a thing because it
The
is
cat spray bottle.
seriously. I'm headed down that route. It's true. Yeah.
I love it.
Yes, these children. Then there's my son, who is, people don't understand that, like, I have had to force myself to become a morning person. I have a whole podcast episode on it, like establishing an early morning routine. It's changed my life. I love it, but it is not natural for me. It's so hard to get up early in the morning. And then there's my son, who just is naturally wide awake between 6:30 and 7 every morning.
That's me.
See, that's so lovely. I would love to just like be awake instead of force myself to get out of bed.
I don't know. I also do not like to lay in bed. So when I wake up and my eyes open, I am up and I'm out.
See,
I am
that is
not
so
going to lay
nice.
in bed.
You early morning people don't understand. It's so hard. You feel terrible. It's like you feel like you could not possibly get out of bed right now. Yeah. Well, I'm happy for you.
Like, I'm happy for you, but not really. This is annoying.
Inside, really, I hate you, but I'm
like,
smiling and I like you on the outside.
At least you're owning it.
I'm
I like that.
So jealous. So jealous. Well, anyway, if any of you want to learn how to establish an early morning routine, you can look it up on my podcast, look it up on my blog. It's taken a lot of work. It is possible, though. It's certainly been one of the secrets to success in my life. So moving on from early morning routines, we talked a little bit about this entrepreneurial journey. So you were in sales, a corporate career, if you will, for, 2 decades. And both of us have similar stories in that regard. I was in a corporate career for a decade and a half. And then you moved into this entrepreneur world. And something that is not talked about a lot is this. It's easy to look at the success then as an entrepreneur, but we rarely talk about that struggle that all of us end up having to go through, no matter how successful we were in the corporate world, and the sacrifices made in that season where you are transitioning. Share with me a little bit about what it looked like for you to go from that corporate career where you had that, in a sense, guaranteed income to suddenly becoming an entrepreneur where you're now like, it's up to you and you need to figure out how to fund. What kind of sacrifices did you make? How long do you feel like, or maybe you're still in it? I am currently in that process of making a profit and seeing that return on top of your investment. Just tell me a little bit about that in between and encouragement for people who are like, I could never do it, or I'm in it. Will I ever be out of it? Yeah,
this is, I love this question. So I'll speak for myself and then I'll give a more general thing for, because it doesn't sound like you're asking about like service-based entrepreneurs. This could be somebody opening a store. Like, it doesn't matter. Like,
absolutely.
Anything. Yeah. So for me, the struggle that I had was I'm not going to swear on the podcast, but this is actually what I said. It's about fully blank 1 month after I did not have 2 paychecks, after getting a paycheck every 2 weeks for 20 years and realizing, that paid bills. So I haven't replaced that.
Yeah.
Which is really hard mentally. I had saved, I had it, but my wife and I, we'd never need to dip into savings for anything unless like buying a piece of real estate or something or a car. Right. So the idea that I was at the age of 41 at the time that I was going to draw down from savings to pay bills was soul crushing for me. So that was like the hardest part for me. And then the second thing that was hard was the booms and the busts that happened.
Mm.
And I still have this in my business today. Like my January was insane. And then I had a slow February, a decent March, and April should be good. But the idea that it's all like, I'm still getting used to that because in sales, that gets you fired. Sales, when you work for somebody else, is all about consistency. So the idea that like, it doesn't matter if this money comes in now or comes in later. It's just money that goes in that you can use versus the rhythm of having a paycheck. Like, with this paycheck, we pay $1,000 towards the mortgage and the kids, whatever, and clothes and all those things. And now it's like, it's just a big sum of money. So I'll have big sums of money coming at once and then nothing come in for a month at a time.
Yeah.
So that's been a challenge mentally. And then the amount of no's that you, like for me personally, you get a lot of no's in what I do. And I'm good with no's. I was good with no's in my sales career, but a no when it's people saying no to you is different than people saying no to this software is too expensive or something.
Yes, that's a great point.
That was hard. I think I'm pretty good at it now because it's not generally about me. And even if it's about me, then we're probably just not a good fit. And that's fine because the kind of work I do is all relationship based. So it needs to be a good fit. We need to have good synergy and all those things. So that's what I would say for me. The biggest challenge was the financial thing, but more about outside of the actual dollars and cents, what did it mean about me as a father, as a husband, as a person in the world used to doing well and being in sales and saying, hey, like my life was all about how much did I sell and how much money did I make? Not my whole life, but that was how I was judged. To, well, if I take those same group of metrics and put them against me this year, I'm a piece of poop.
Yeah.
Like I'm a piece of poop. And when you're in your feelings and in your like, when you are deep in your own assessment, your brain likes to forget that this is a natural part of how it's going to go.
Yeah.
And related to back that was. So for me, that was the challenge. It's still a challenge for me sometimes. I mean, I would imagine for most people who are selling their own services or doing more solopreneur work, there's always going to be a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for me. Go ahead.
Savings. I just wanted to point out because what's also, I'm so blessed because we really live on what my husband makes. For me, it's supplemental. And so that has been, and he, has gone above and beyond to, take extra opportunities to help buffer us a little bit because we did go from significant supplemental to not so significant supplemental when I stepped away from medicine. So he has given me that, which, I honor him for. I'm so thankful. But I think for many men where you are at, I so appreciate you sharing because it is really different when you are the primary provider from a financial standpoint. So, for those men listening who are questioning, how can I do this? Did you transition at all while you were still in sales? Like, was there, because I think that's a huge piece of it that I want to point out is that very rarely are entrepreneurs just suddenly stopping and starting. There's usually some overlap. And if you are dreaming of starting up your own business, but you've not taken any first steps, most entrepreneurs who are successful are taking first steps while they're double dipping. It's exhausting. I did the same thing, but you have to start now. Tell me a little bit about how you did that. How did you budget that into your work week? Because you were probably taking up a lot of hours already for your job. I think that's the number one question. When is the time?
Totally.
How do I have time to do that?
I was fortunate that, I side hustled the full time. I could not recommend that enough. Do not just quit your job and go be like, and today I'm going to do this. It can work out. You are decreasing your odds by doing that. So our friend Rory has a great saying, and he says, sometimes you just have to do what you need to do until you get to do what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I believe that. And I believe that that's part of the side hustling. So depending on the business, so this depends. If you're like, hey, I have a passion for becoming, I'm going to randomly make something up. And I'm saying this because I was watching the person sitting next to me on the plane yesterday was watching HGTV.
Yeah.
So, and they were watching Fixer Upper. So if you have a pet, I don't know if you're a Fixer Upper fan, I like Chip and Joanna. If you're a fan, if you're somebody who's like, hey, I want to open up a fine woodworking business. you can't really side hustle that business in terms of like, it's a labor intensive thing. You need to be working with your hands. But if you're something that's like, hey, I want to be a personal trainer, you can start by taking on a client or two clients, figuring out how to make that work within your schedule. Same with coaching, with consulting, with brand strategy work, speaking coaches. If those are things you want to do and you want to be more of a service provider, go get a client and do it for free if you need to get the experience. One, to make sure you want to do it. Make sure you want to do it, because it's not easy. And so you need to want to do it in order to, going back to what I said earlier, to have the consistency, the stamina. So that's number one.
Yeah.
Number two, don't quit your job. Like, don't run away. Like, you get laid off, if something happens, that's a place you might want to go, hey, what's next for me?
Yeah.
But you don't want to be in a position where your business is just starting to take off, but it's not quite there, and you have to go back and get a job because you just don't have the money. Because that's more heartbreaking than anything. When you're seeing momentum, but you're not where you want to be. And then you have to say, well, I have to give up on this thing and go back. And I know so many people, like, I think the average, now I'll speak just to coaching because I know the space well. I think the average coach in the United States, this is overall life coaches, business coaches, the average length that people run their business is like a year and 9 months. Because it's a grind, finding clients and figure out who you are and what you do and how you serve people. And the reality is, after a year and 9 months, most people that haven't made enough money, they have to go back and do it. And my assertion would be, if they waited a little bit longer, it would probably start to work for them. But people need to pay the bills.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what would you say to the financial aspect too? I think there's a lot of concern just in the idea of money. It's like the idea of money can be extreme on either side. Sometimes we can under prioritize it, meaning we don't give enough attention. We're not using the money that we have well enough, and we should be. That can be a bad thing. On the flip side, sometimes we can over glorify it and be so concerned about saving every single penny and almost become overly stingy on the other side, where we're almost glorifying it to the point where we're saving every single penny and maybe not spending enough. In terms of like getting into a job that you love with the financial mindset, I'm sure you see this a lot. And I feel like men especially, and I think it's probably a societal expectation because of, traditionally speaking, they tend to be more of the provider. That's certainly shifting.
Yeah.
But I think there is still just an inherent expectation that men have on themselves to meet certain financial landmarks in their life. You touched on this a little bit, the idea of joy and gratitude and how sometimes that is enough success when that's the measurement. But speak a little bit to the male mindset for somebody listening who's just really concerned about the financial aspect of their job. And maybe it is holding them back from doing what they want to do. Maybe they are moving too fast into what they want to do. Speak into that a little bit.
Yeah, two things. One, it's an employee market. So if you're skilled, go out and find another job that pays you what you want. So for those listening who are, I like what I do, but I don't believe I'm paid fairly. Go find another job. Seriously, the job market's insane right now in a good way for skilled. And this is not even this is a man or woman thing. Go out and find something that's a better fit for you. Probably arguably never a better time to do that. For those who are concerned about what they're going to need if they don't like what they do and they just are doing it for the paycheck, I would start with, what do you need to survive? And what does survive mean to you? So for me and my wife, survive does not mean we're eating ramen noodles and the kids are wearing clothes that are too small for them. That's not survival for us. We have a higher expectation, like charitable donations and those sort of things. So figure out what you need to survive. Figure out what's your runway. So I think that's another really important thing. What's your runway? And like you said with your husband, he's taking on some extra stuff. I don't know what your husband does, but cool. Like, are you willing to take on some other things? Because you can usually find part-time work through Upwork, or if you're like a marketer or a design or a sales, like there's all sorts of contract work that you can take on as you're doing your primary thing that gives you more flexibility. The thing that is shocking I'm guessing, you were on your feet working inside locations. You're in healthcare. So like you report here, you have your time card and you're here.
Right.
The context shift that happens when suddenly you go, nobody's telling me what to do in my time anymore. What am I going to do in my time?
Yes.
And that's a real mind trip for a lot of entrepreneurs too, is, so what do I do now? And you've got all these ideas of things you want to do, but you're not sure where to start. That's the other thing too, is around the money part, figure out the steps and get help with that. So you can invest in coaching, you can invest in things. There's tons of free resources out there. There's tons of books you can read, but figure out your priorities. And you said it, start yesterday. So if that's a business plan, or if that's getting more training, or if that's working on your brand and doing that, so that when you are ready and you do leave your job or you move it to part-time or whatever it is you decide to do, you've got some sort of momentum. So you don't go from, and I've never skydove. Is that skydove? I don't know how it's I've never been skydiving. That's how you would say it. I was trying to think what the other past tense would be. Skydove. I've never.
I was like, I'm not sure. Keep going.
I've never been skydiving, but my understanding is one of the things that's really shocking is you're moving horizontally and then you're suddenly moving vertically, and that's like a very strange thing for your body. I would imagine it's a lot like that with.
Yeah.
It is a lot like that. At least it was for me. Is I know where I'm going, and suddenly wait, I'm moving in a different direction.
Right. Right.
So just being clear about that. And if you're not clear, again, there's so many resources that you can pay for that are free. If you're married to somebody, talk to them about it. Get support and don't do it alone, because the thing I would say is entrepreneurship and solopreneurship especially can be very lonely. Even if you are a service-based business and you're working with people, it can be very lonely.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what I would say. And then just the financial planning. Like, what is your runway before you need to make $1? That's a question I ask people. Hey, how long can you go without making $1?
Well, and the whole concept of financial planning, I think, is such a great point, because this is something that is so neglected. When I think back in high school and some of the dumb courses and classes that I took, where was the financial planning course? The simple idea of managing a bank account. There's times I'm just, my mind's blown when I look back and I think, wait, why did I take how to do your laundry and home ec when I could have been learning how to manage my bank account? I mean, seriously, it's kind of mind blowing. And I think that's a great point that you're making that I want to reiterate too, whether you are, man or woman. But the fact is, depending on how you were raised, this can go both ways. You could have been raised in a home that did not make a ton of money, but you were taught really, really good financial management. On the flip side, you could have been raised in a home with a lot of money and never taught a single thing about financial management or planning. You could have been raised in a home where you made a lot of money and a lot of money was spent and there was not good financial planning and you were still not taught about. So there's all these subconscious, you may have a certain idea of what finances looks like just simply by osmosis and what you saw in your home. And it may or may not be good. My husband and I had two very different, my inherent mindset is we can make more.
Yeah.
Which is not necessarily good. When we're in very much the fixer upper world, we're wrapping up our third fixer upper, where I started with our first house to where I am right now, worlds apart, because I had to learn so much about financial planning. But in my head, it was like, I'll make more. I'll find a way to make more. I'll find a way to make this up. And there's positives to that. I've learned I very much have an entrepreneur mindset, but the danger is I had no education behind that. So we were way behind on credit card payments because I was impatient and I didn't want to wait till we had enough money to fix this part of our house. So I say that only to reiterate what you're saying. I think one of the number one things is make sure that you take a financial course from somebody who truly knows what they're talking about and understand, because you may think you do, but you may not. You don't want to make assumptions because you don't want to be scared of money. You don't want to glorify it. You also don't want to be scared of it. It's just a tool. It's not a destination.
We'll wrap with the money thing here and tell you, one of the things that always comes up in coaching is money. And the question I ask clients is, what's your story about money? We all have a story about money.
It's a great question.
What's your story about money? So I grew up, just to share, because you shared, I grew up that you can't make more money, that the way you make more money is by working your butt off. And it's
Yeah.
not because of how I was raised. My parents aren't actually really like that. It's because I just always saw hard work and grind as the way to do it. That's not necessarily true anymore. Like I don't, and I find generally the times when I make the most money in my business when I'm not grinding, when it like comes from ease or I kind of let it take care of me. But yeah, we all have a story about money. And whatever your story is about money, for those listening, when you work for yourself, that story is going to become very top of mind and in your face. And I would be shocked. It was for me, like, oh, whoa, look at all these beliefs I have about money. And suddenly you're like, oh, wait. And now it's on me. Okay, that's different.
I love that. That's a great question. What is your story about money and how do you perceive money? So let's wrap with this, because I think there's so much good stuff here. What resources do you send people to depending on their story and beliefs about money? So for people listening, I think this is such a great place to start, really, no matter whether you want to be an entrepreneur or not. What resources do you send people when it comes to having an appropriate, healthy, beneficial mindset about money?
Yeah. So I don't have a resource. My best advice would be, do not be afraid to get a financial planner, because find somebody you like, find somebody that you believe has you and your family's best interest at heart. Financial planners, they usually make a percentage of your assets under management, but their job is to make sure that you're at what their fee gets buried underneath the returns you get that are way on top of what you would get otherwise.
Yeah.
So I know people are like, oh, I can't afford a financial planner. There are financial planners of all things. So that would be the first resource, is find somebody. And if you like Dave Ramsey, for example, there's a whole list of Dave Ramsey Dave Ramsey's got a ton of resources too. And it also depends, right? Are we talking about how to get out of debt? Are we talking about how to buy a home? Like there's different parts of financial things.
Right.
If we're talking about scaling business, like scaling your entrepreneurial business, depending on what you're in, there's a ton of free resources from great coaches and business coaches out there around how do you start, how do you grow, how do you scale from a one-to-one to one-to-many, how do you market? You and I met through brand builders. This is what we talk about, like at a very affordable cost. How do you build your personal brand so you can grow that way? And honestly, just like if you're an entrepreneur, just Google like how to start a blank business. There's going to be a bunch of stuff. The one thing I will say, there's a bunch of stuff, and anytime there's a bunch of stuff, there's good stuff, and then there's not so good stuff.
There's not so good stuff. That is true. Is there any one person that you could think of that you would be like, yeah, I would hang my hat on this person's advice when it comes to financial?
Yeah, planning? Our financial planner. His name is Mark. He's in Ohio.
Mark in Ohio. Just Google Mark in Ohio.
Mark in Ohio. No, he's
good.
He's been our guy for 17 years. I was with him right before I met my wife, and he's just been our person. He's been a game changer for us. Like our rocket. You don't have to make a lot of money. Just he's helped us with what insurance we need when we had our children. Like, what should we do? He doesn't get paid money for that, but he's just our guy.
Yeah.
So he honestly, he's my resource.
And I think to that point, so for somebody listening, we might not have a specific name for you, but I would say this: find somebody who you do respect, who you feel like has managed their finances well, and ask them, do they have a financial planner? Do you recommend your financial planner? And then that would be a great way to try to find a place to start for yourself. Is in that regard, we probably all have somebody in our life who we respect how they have managed their finances, and then get a recommendation. It's hard to beat a personal recommendation. So I think that's a great way to start. Jason, we could cover so much more. Tell me where people can find you if they want. You're also a podcast host. We haven't even touched on
a 2-time podcaster.
He has
now.
2 podcasts.
Because I'm crazy.
I had the privilege of being interviewed for one of them, which was super fun.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your podcast and where people can find you if they want to learn more. They want leadership coaching, business coaching, all of the above.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I have 2 podcasts. One's called Talking to Cool People. You and I's episode is coming out soon. Can't wait to do that.
We talked about so many things in that episode.
We talked about so many things. It's great. So that's Talking to Cool People. It's a long form style podcast where I talk to people that I think are cool, and I think most people are cool. So if anybody's interested in coming on as a guest, as long as you are willing to get a little vulnerable and have some fun, you're a good guest. My business podcast is called Talking to Tech People. I just launched it a month ago. The business focused podcast. I talk to founders, CEOs, movers and shakers in tech. I've had somebody come on and talk about crypto. So that's more of a either technical podcast or more of a business related podcast. So if you know of anybody there, I'm looking for people that work in tech specifically. So for example, I have the CEO of an electric motorcycle company coming on. That's tech.
Interesting.
Great. Yeah. So, and you can find those on all the major networks. Actually, if you just search my name, both of those will come up. And so where people can go is to my website, it's just my name.com.
So that's
Personal
Jason
branding.
Frazell. So that's JASON FRAZELL.
Yep. And all my stuff's on there on podcasts, the things I do, got some free resources on there. Yeah, I'd just love to hear from people, connect, whether, you think we want to do business together, we want to talk about it, you want to come on the podcast, you want to tell me how this podcast is so much better than mine. I'm open to all of it.
It's different. It's definitely not better. That is for sure. Yeah. Talking to cool people. You guys need to check out the podcast. I enjoyed the questions that I was asked are fun. They're fun questions.
Yeah. That's what I'm committed to. Fun and joy.
That's right. I love that. Well, Jason, thank you for the fun and joy that you bring. Thanks for this interview. And I pray God's richest blessings on your home, your family, your sweet babies.
My finances.
Your finances. Hey, like you said, I would take joy any day over money. Money is a tool, people, not a destination.
Yeah. Thank you so much. So that's a pleasure to be on.
Thanks, Jason.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Imperfectly Empowered podcast. It is my honor to be here with you. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. If you are watching on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button below so you don't miss a show, and leave a comment with your thoughts from today's episode below. If you are listening via your preferred podcasting platform, would you help keep us on the air by rating our show and leaving an honest review of your thoughts from today? In case you haven't heard it lately, your story matters and you are loved. This is your host, Anna Fulmer, and I will see you here next time on the Imperfectly Empowered podcast.